Welcome back, my fellow Cybertronians, to the Ginger Transformer podcast. This is your host, Mega Ginge, and today, as promised, we will be talking about those ancient evil beings and, ironically, the creators of the Transformers, the Quintessons. This will be fun. So, what do we know about the Quintessons? Origins. No one knows where the Quintessons came from. The only thing we do know is that they are one of the original species to rise in this new universe that was created after the Big Bang. It's one of the first sentient species. We fast forward billions of years to when they create Cybertron as a factory for their product. The product rebels, the Quintessons have no choice but to flee the planet and go back to another planet. Whether this was their home planet or not, there's a very good possibility the Quintessa is not their original homeworld. It could have been created sometime long before what we get to see on screen. Let's go through the ranks, let's go through the hierarchy. The actual Quintessons themselves, each face represents a different trait or personality of a Quintesson judge, which they need for consensus for what they're going to do. We obviously have the main face, Death, the one that seems to be judge, jury, and executioner. But we also have the other four faces. We have War, Wrath, Bitterness, and Judgment. These Quintessons, the original Quintessons, they're not really what you'd call fighters. They're more scientists, commanders. They really don't have any sort of combat expertise, nor could they actually do it given their stature, being just a bulbous being that travels on a beam of light with little squid tentacles, hence the nickname the Squiddies. These are the ones that people are most familiar with, but there is an actual hierarchy of Quintessons themselves. So you have the judges, but then you have the commanders, you also have the scientists, and you also have their executioners. But you don't really see much of the executioners. These seem to be mentioned in season 3, but you don't really see them apart from the flashback, who do have a body, do have legs, they have actual proper arms, but there are beam cannons attached to each one instead of hands. And the Quintessons used them as, what you hear, executioners, long before they had Shatterticons or Alicons. They also have bailiffs to this regard. A bailiff is basically an Alicon, but with a higher level of authority. We also have the cannon fodder, which I mentioned. We have the Sharkticons, and we have the Alicons. Both the Alicons and Sharkticons, compared to the Quintesson Masters, have very limited intelligence, and this actually helps the Autobots and Decepticons many times to get the jump on them. But we don't really see much of the Quintessons. We see them throughout Season 3, like Dark Awakenings. It's a personal favourite. It's got zombie Optimus Prime coming back. We find out that he was basically reanimated by the Quintessons as nothing more than a robotic zombie with a bit of personality mixed in. One of the episodes where they're actually working with the Autobots is the return of Optimus Prime Part 1 and 2. Skylynx is sent to retrieve a Quintesson to bring Optimus Prime back to life. Last orders from Rodimus before he becomes infected with the hate plague. But we never really see the Quintessons again after season 3. They're not in the Rebirth. They're not in any of the Japanese Transformers series. At least not that I can remember. I really don't think they are. They're not in Beast Wars or Beast Machines. I think it might be mentioned a couple of times, but that's pretty much it. But their presence is quite heavy in the comics. Like I said, the Junkions weren't in the Marvel US comics. Neither really were the Quintessons. They had their own stories, basically dedicated to each species in the Marvel UK comics. The Quintessons have their own one as well. It is set before an apocalyptic event in the Transformers comic universe, whereby when in Legacy of Unicron, Cyclones and Scourge were thrown back in time, reality starts to unravel. Future Autobots and Decepticons and present-day Autobots and Decepticons mainly fighting Galvatron and Megatron because they team up and start slaughtering Autobots left, right and centre, which is fantastic. But there is a comic where the Quintessons are going to become victims of this. There's a rift opened up due to these events near Quintessa, so they launch a multi-pronged attack against both Autobots on Earth and Decepticons on Cybertron. They attack Autobot City, and they let a distress cog out so the Autobots from Cybertron come to Earth. The Quintessons have set this up as a trap. The Quintessons are waiting for the Autobots on Earth. However, there's Quintesson siege troopers all over Cybertron. Just all of a sudden, they seem to just pop up from nowhere, and more troops come. And it's only due to Soundwave and Ultra Magnus combining forces and thwarting the Quintessons, throwing them off of Cybertron. When the Quintessons reach Earth, however, Rodimus is lulled into trying to repair RC, who has been critically damaged and left just wide out in the open. They blast him from behind, take the Matrix in. The Autobots who remain end up having to fight the Quintessons to a standstill and are able to activate Metroplex, who is able to, at this point, pretty easily smush their forces. The Quintessons lose their planet. I don't think you ever see Quintessons once again in it, because after the events of Time Wars, all of the future history that we've seen over the past several, who knows how many comics, gets rewritten. But that's all the Generation 1 Quintesson involvement. We get hinted at Quintessons in the War Within Dreamwave comic book series, but we don't ever really get to see them. IDW didn't really take on the baton, if I'm completely honest. I don't think they thought Quintessons were a good idea, or at least they must not have thought they were a good idea to have them in it so little. We have Megatron meeting one Quintesson on the death planet of Junkion, but at the end of it, Megatron basically rips the spark out of this Quintesson, uses it to power himself, get himself off of the death planet of Junk and back home to Cybertron. He then inserts this spark into a just defeated Triptychon. He can remember being both Quintesson and Triptychon, which is very weird in his own head. But eventually, as you do, the Quintessons do, they turn on Megatron and his army. Once he collects the whole army, basically turns on him, and the spark is eventually extinguished. Triptychon is freed from the influence of this Quintesson. But yeah, that's pretty much, apart from the aforementioned War for Cybertron Earthrise series, where we do get another Quintesson, another look at Quintessons. But I think if I'm honest, that was just put in there just to sell the toys, because they were in it for like 2 episodes, and that seems to be all the screen time the Quintessons have ever got. There was a Quintesson, Alpha Quintesson, and Transformers Energon, but that is not my area of expertise, if I'm completely honest. I know this Alpha Quintesson was just a one-faced Quintesson, the face of death, but that seems to be it on all the Quintesson appearances in G1 lore. So that has done all the mechanical or biomechanical species. My next video is going to be about us, the humans. We need to be mentioned. We need an episode, because we have been the victims in the Cybertronian War for years. Not as long as themselves, but they're much longer lived than us. Until next time, my fellow Cybertronians, keep on trucking, and I'll see you in the next video.